Another edition of Beat the Closing Number presented by thelines.com. Joined by Justin Perri of Shot Quality Bets and Hoops HQ. Great college basketball betting content at both of those respective sites. I'm Eli Hershkovich. We are handicapping Champ Week early evening and night game action on Friday, March 14th. Justin, it's arguably the best slate of the college basketball season.
I mean, I could argue Thursday is right there with it. These are definitely two of the most fun days. Everything, elimination, nothing, feels trivial. Maybe some teams take things a little bit lightly, but you don't have many first round games of these tournaments anymore, right? So those lower tier teams have maybe tucked their tails between their legs and gone home if they're not really interested in participating, or maybe looking forward to March Madness or the Crown Challenge or Invitational. Who knows? But it is a great day, a great 2 days. And then, we get the bracket reveal in 72 hours, deciding how I'm going to deal with my futures on Monday, trying to keep up with all the content flying around. It is the best week of the year for sure.
Let's start off with some injuries. Cooper Flagg, the big one, the best player in college basketball, favored to win the Wooden Award before he went down dealing with a sprained left ankle, but likely out for the rest of the ACC tournament. We'll touch on Duke UNC here in a moment. Chance McMillan for Texas Tech, undisclosed, but there were reports on X that he was dealing with a stomach bug, so we'll see if he plays tonight. I would expect the Red Raiders to be a bit cautious, but we'll see. Lamont Butler for Kentucky, still dealing with that shoulder injury, missed much of the game against Oklahoma. Otega always saving Kentucky moneyline bettors last night. Mark Mitchell, knee injury, similarly to McMillan, missed a good chunk of the Missouri win against Mississippi State. And then Renee Smith for Louisville, ankle injury, didn't play in their first game of the ACC tournament against Stanford, but Chucky Hepburn saved them. We'll touch on Louisville and Clemson here in a few. But Justin, just of those 5 injuries, a game that we're not going to hit on in particular, Texas Tech in their semifinal of the Big 12 tournament, taking on Arizona. You're going to be on the Red Raiders, though.
Yeah, I am going to take a little Texas Tech today. It should be a fun game. And look, McMillan, he's been great, just absolutely shooting the lights out in the conference. I think there's definitely a reason to discount this Texas Tech team without him. But I do think that their scheme and how they play this game should give the Red Raiders a good chance to continue to honestly get this done. They are that strong of a team in terms of their spacing they develop. The three-point shooting, is going to take a hit without chance, but they're still going to be efficient attacking the rim. They're still going to have that passing prowess. Don't turn the ball over. They don't get to the rim a lot. They rely on those jump shots, but they do have the shooters to get it done. I have not been super enthralled with how Arizona looks this season. This is a fun one for me. So I think the quickness of Arizona can kind of get them in trouble. They don't defend well against threes. Shot quality sees them rated 333rd in bad defense against three-point shooting, so allowing high-quality looks. Against a jump shooting team like Tech, okay, I'll lay the possession.
Keep in mind, this is a Texas Tech team that went to Houston, won without JT Toppin and Grant McCaslin for pretty much the entire game, which included overtime. So, yes, McMillan, big injury, but I don't blame you.
Had him there too, I think, if I'm not mistaken. So,
yeah, and they were a 10-point dog in that game. I don't blame you for taking the Red Raiders. But let's tip it off. Heavy handicap of the ACC tournament, first semifinal, early Friday evening. Duke, the number 1 seed in this tournament, against UNC. A lot of movement for Duke's national title odds. You can check that out over at thelines.com. A full breakdown of that when Cooper Flagg initially went down with the ankle injury on Thursday afternoon. But Blue Devils still playing for that number 1 overall seed, likely without Flagg tonight. And if they advance to the championship game, UNC right on the tournament bubble. We've seen some movement towards the Tar Heels. Duke now around a 7-point favorite. Still some 7.5s, but mainly 7.5s painted across the board as of Wednesday night or Thursday night. So a little bit of movement towards the Tar Heels, getting a flat 7 now. UNC has shot below 50% combined at the rim and in the paint in their 2 meetings against Duke. So yes, no flag and his rim protection, but you still have Maluach and one of the best defenses in the country. Keep in mind, Duke covered against UNC in both of their respective regular season matchups, including the regular season finale between those two teams. How do Withers, Lubin, and these UNC guards do at the rim and in the paint yet again against a very, very good Duke interior defense? And over UNC's last 9 games, they've won 8 of them. They're shooting over 45%. So how long does that last against a good defense where UNC shot around 33% in their last meeting against the Blue Devils? How are you handicapping this one, Justin, whether you have a play on it or not? For me, staying away, but what about for you?
Staying away, North Carolina money line if I really wanted to do something crazy. Yeah, I mean, NC was expected to give Duke a loss in that meeting by shot quality, but it's hard to, really trust with Flag's dominance. He's not there today. So this should be a spot where, I don't know, this is going to be a different look for Duke. I know there was a lot of stepping up yesterday, but now you have, UNC essentially able to game plan at least a little bit, understand the difference between how they played before. And honestly, the rim should just be that much more open today. So I think their interior presence, it has to step up. I think if you like UNC and you maybe want to take a bet on a big dog, I never hate watching the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game, 8 minutes of game time, and then saying, all right, are they actually developing the looks I want them to be developing?
How about a 1st to 20 bet?
Yeah, no, I don't play those.
I'm just kidding.
I know. But I don't think you'd do that here because it's just too uncertain. If anything, I'd want next 20 points. I want to see the way that the data is coming in and understand what I'm getting from North Carolina in terms of the shot profile, how Duke's playing. Because again, UNC is a very efficient 3-point shooting team. They don't turn the ball over. They move fast, and they have a strong, rim attack frequency. So, and they can run in transition. So if Flag's not there, that could be, this could be the specific game where his presence could be worth a lot more because of how North Carolina plays. And that's why I don't like the blanket statement of, a player is worth X, a player is worth Y. Well, they're worth X and Y depending on if a team goes at where they strengthen or weaken their efforts, right? Like if you're playing a rim attack team that couldn't attack the rim because of Cooper Flag, and it's going to be a much different team or a much different result with Flag out than if you're playing Clemson, who takes a lot of jump shots, or Louisville, who takes a lot of jump shots. North Carolina is going to look to make them pay for not having their star big.
I'm with you there. No bet for me. Just the antithetical of that, too, with Duke against Georgia Tech. Yes, they didn't cover a big spread without Flag, but Tyrese Proctor and James combined 1 of 10 shooting from deep.
Very different talent level, though.
Yeah, no, fair point. So we'll see how Duke's, not role players, but secondary scorers play in this one with Flag likely out. The second ACC tournament semifinal, you have a bet in this one, Justin. Clemson against Louisville, second seeded. Cardinals against the Tigers. Clemson, a 1-point favorite pretty much at most sports books. Be sure to price shop over at thelines.com. Chucky Hepburn winning it at the buzzer for Louisville and avoiding the upset against Stanford. Keep in mind, as I touched on off the top, no Renee Smith pretty much for the ACC tournament. Not as impactful as Flag, but still worth noting. And Clemson avoiding an upset as well against SMU as a 7-point favorite. Both teams combined to shoot 14.3% from beyond the arc. Not nearly as bad as what we saw in the St. Mary's Gonzaga game a couple nights ago, but still pretty rough for the second and third seed in the ACC tournament. Louisville beat Clemson and covered as a home favorite in their lone regular season meeting in early January. And that was with Renee Smith, Hepburn, and Edwards combining 3 of 20 from behind the arc. Justin, you're on the Cardinals. Why are you backing Pat Kelsey's squad here?
Why am I backing Pat Kelsey, the coach of the year in the ACC, for good reason? And I think this
coach
is
of the year for shot quality?
I mean, that's a really interesting one. No. Coach of the year for shot quality is Rick Pitino.
Okay.
For sure. Because, again, they've consistently outperformed SQ. I think that's what the coach of the year needs to do, is outperform. And we've actually been very high on Louisville. So we think Pat Kelsey has done exactly what he was supposed to do. So, it's the same argument. It's different because we saw it first, so we get that kind of like, well, but yeah, he did a great job. Rick Pitino continues to confound, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But that's the coach of the year for me per shot quality. Look, Louisville, 48.5% of their shots from deep. They're going to give Clemson a taste of their own medicine. Clemson, is going to try to force those turnovers, win the shot math battle by not losing the ball and taking it away from you. I think Louisville's guards have what it takes to avoid that. They're also another strong turnover team. And I think in terms of how Clemson's done in a weak ACC, that's been a very big boon, winning turnover battles. How these teams, Clemson lost to Louisville in early January, I think it was, and it was pretty solid. Shot quality saw it as a loss. I believe it was at Louisville. So, maybe extrapolate for those points. If you trust that those teams are even close to where they are now, maybe a 4 or 5 point win for Louisville. But, the run that Clemson's on, beating SMU, Virginia Tech, Boston College, Virginia, Notre Dame, SMU, Florida State, North Carolina, and Duke since the start of February, lost to that Georgia Tech team at home to start the month. But essentially, that's their only loss in conference play besides that Louisville game. So, Louisville is the second best team in the conference. Clemson's the third. I'll take the second. I trust what I saw in that game. I trust what the points per possession looks like. I do not like that Clemson doesn't attack the rim. They're not going to be able to develop the spacing they want against a smart defense out of Pat Kelsey. This is a good spot. It's a good spot that Louisville doesn't foul. Clemson relies on those free throws. And they play smart defense. They play smart shot quality based defense. They force you into that mid range, and it's good stuff. And they don't take them themselves. I love teams that force you to take mid range shots and don't take them because it's just good basketball. So give me Louisville.
All right, Clemson may not attack the rim per se, but they are really efficient and hyperactive in the low post. But conversely, Louisville ranks in the 65th percentile in post-up defense on a points per possession basis. That per synergy in 79th percentile on opponents' field goal efficiency in the paint. So that's big against Shefflin, Locken, and even Jaden Zachary. I would call him a knockoff brand of, maybe that's a little bit even too much, but similar-ish to Jalen Brunson because he does have that guard post-up game that we saw from one of the best guards in college basketball history. And that's not to compare Zachary to Brunson, but just in terms of stylistically how they play at times. So I agree with you. Not only Louisville against Clemson's drop coverage, but Louisville's post-up defense should pay dividends here in this matchup, especially with Scott, one of Louisville's key bigs and arguably their most physical big. No play for me, but if I had to bet it, I would be with you on the Cardinals. Over to the Big East tournament, Justin. St. John's and Marquette in the first of two semifinal matchups. Winner gets the victor of Creighton, UConn. Rest in peace to my alma mater, DePaul, up 17 in the second half.
I thought it was Easter weekend the way they were rising from the grave.
All right, let's take a breather there, Justin. Red Storm sweeping Marquette in the regular season. Covering in both games, we were on the wrong side last weekend with Marquette failing to not only cover but win the game outright against the Johnnies at home on Senior Day. Rick Pitino's bunch holding as a steady 4.5 point, essentially home favorite at the Garden in this one. You're wearing the jacket. How are you betting this game?
The person who puts on the jacket and the software that makes the picks are not connected. Let's just put that out there. All right. I don't tell the model what to do. It tells me what to do. And again, Rick Pitino has confounded shot quality data all season long. Everything points to this team struggling. And I'm I've never been more happy to have my pressure shot quality data be as wrong as I've seen it at this level in a long time. And here's the thing. I think it's twofold. It's that, the data isn't really architected to handle this. And also, they're just actually really, really, really good and really talented and absolutely doing things that are a bit surreal. They are rated 307th in expected three-point shooting efficiency. They are rated 336th in defense against three-point shooters. So they just are expected to be essentially giving up way too many points on threes, and they're taking way too many mid-range shots, but they're absolutely cannon them, right? They're shooting 41% from mid-range this season, and they're taking 22% of their shots from the mid-range. So you start to extrapolate, that's 4% of 22%. Like you're getting awfully close to 1% of their entire season's points being expected to not come, right? And that is at least like a half a point a game. And it doesn't sound like much, but that's on aggregate, right? So that's 30 games for 35 games. That's 16 points against them sprinkled across their, season in various spots. That changes results. A lot of close wins for sure. Marquette by 2, lost to Villanova by 2, beat Providence by 2, Xavier overtime game. It's been a crazy season. So this is like a little bit of a good luck team. The record luck's all the way up at 25.5%. That's kind of tough. The half court offense is not expected to be good. It really, they're a Texas A&M, but they're better, right? They force even more turnovers. They get even more offensive rebounds. And then they can actually hit their mid-range with guys like R.J. Lewis Jr. and Kadari Richmond. That's where they're truly dangerous, is that when they need a bucket, they can get it. That's the problem with so many of these teams that have this build. When they need a bucket, they can't get it. They're defensively awesome. San Diego State, Texas A&M, they can rebound you out in the gym. But, St. John's seems to be able to hit the shots that no one else is able to in these spots. And then their defense is just expected to be giving up so much more. So I think it's a little bit to do with like the length. Aaron Scott, RJ Lewis, Kadari Richmond, Smith,
Zuby.
all have a little extra length in those arms. They're like elite size talent. You're not going to see it on like the Ken Pom height rating, but I bet if you got into like arm to height ratio, those boys got arms past their knees, dude. And that's a big deal. I mean, you talk about the way that you see it in the pro game now. You need these defensive wings. And Lewis and Scott, I mean, they can shut any of their peers down, and then they can still get buckets on the other end. So they are net wins on the floor at every moment they play, right? So, and then you have to deal with Kadari, who's a net win, and then Zuby, who can guard 1 to 5. So your only chance is like what? They're going to have to run into a Walter Clayton or a Hubbard or someone who can take advantage of their weakness at the 1 spot. But Sim Wilcher's starting, and he looks fine. He looks solid. He's not great. He's definitely below a healthy Smith, who's going to deal with the shoulder injury and come off the bench probably for maybe the rest of the season. But I don't know. Those two guys.
You talk about mid-range efficiency, and Wilcher's pretty efficient there too.
Sure. But like again, you got 4 absolute guys, 2 to 5 here, and I mean, and Kadari's a point forward, so you're really the only thing you can do is you need a insanely strong perimeter attack that can lead out of the 1 spot and shoot over Sim and Smith and hope that you can body them on the boards. Good luck. You have to keep perfect hold over the ball. You have to get rebounds, and you have to be able to shoot over them. It's just very tough. That said, I'm taking Marquette plus 4.5.
Well, I will say,
it's got to come to an. It's got to come to an. It's been overperforming. This line definitely should be like 2.5, 1.5. Cam Jones feeling good. We saw how that game ended at Madison Square Garden. They've proven it before. I love how Shaka Smart coaches. This is going to be a battle. I'm sad I'm not going to be there, but I couldn't do 3 straight days.
I don't blame you there. He has performed so well as a dog historically in his career. I'm talking about Shaka Smart, but you touched on it with St. John's and their offensive rebounds. 40 combined offensive boards in their 2 meetings against Marquette, and the Golden Eagles, the second worst defensive rebounding percentage in Big East play, only ahead of Seton Hall, who got blitzed by Villanova in the first round of the Big East tournament. Marquette, and I know the market, I've seen some sharp action, and when I say that, the line is dipped in Marquette's direction a little bit. It was 5.5 earlier. Now it's St. John's pretty much -4.5 across the board. Maybe we see some 4s pop a little bit this afternoon. But Marquette's press really got to Xavier in that second half, and another RIP to my Musketeers features. But shout out to Ryan Conwell for hitting that one off the glass, because Xavier was the right side throughout the entire game, covering for, I want to say, at least 34, 35 minutes. But Conwell,
so crazy,
getting lucky and helping us cash in with our Xavier bets. So big shout out to the Musketeers, and hopefully they get into the big dance despite losing.
I got a nice live 7.5. I was sitting there. I was like, this is Xavier. Every day Xavier does this. So I took Marquette plus 7.5. Just mad I didn't take the money line.
Yeah, and Marquette's press got the best of Xavier. I just wouldn't expect that to happen against Kadari Richmond and Smith. So that's
making
why
me want to go. I can't go again. Tickets are like, cheap seats are like $170. I can't do it. I've done two.
You can't do it. Yeah.
No,
I would
got
just
too much
watch
to do.
it on TV.
I might go to NYU, but we can talk about that later.
Ooh. All right.
D3 March Madness.
The other thing that I worry about Marquette here, not that St. John's runs a ton of cuts. I think they're in the 43rd percentile or so in terms of cutting action per synergy, but Marquette ranks in the first percentile against cuts in terms of allowing and defending on a points per possession basis. Xavier had a ton of success on cuts. Granted, they run more of a motion offense than Pitino does, but I would expect nothing less from St. John's here to cut them to death. Maybe you're right. The line should be a little closer to 3 considering where it was in the first meeting at Madison Square Garden, but I can't play this game, man.
These boys are some dogs. That's my only worry about this bet. And I'm on it heavy. I got full unit down for Marquette. It's a big bet. But I don't know, man. I hope I lose it. Which is so funny. It's very separate entities, which is, I think, the way it should be. I mean, plenty of people don't bet like I do. I understand. I'm probably like one of very few. But, like, I wake up, I check what it says I should be playing, or before I go to bed, ideally. I check what it says I should be playing tomorrow. I make sure it didn't take any data in incorrectly and muck up, some of the formula that I've seen it happen. So I take 30 minutes and make sure all the values are proper before I put my money down. And then I analyze things as a fan. So yeah, the Marquette bet, I grimace and I put it down, but guess what? The bets where I grimace, the bets that I hate, are oftentimes the ones I win the most on. So win by 4, Johnnies. Come on, baby. 4-point win. That's all we need. I will be rooting for the 1 possession victory, the late, basket down 7. Marquette hits the 3 or takes it in for a quick layup, to bring it to 4. I don't know. That's the type of game we have here in the Big East. I'm going to say it a million times. It's my new catchphrase. There is no such thing as a bad game in the Big East. So I love the points. I love the points in March, man. I think dogs have been absolutely cleaning up. Why are you laying points in March? You have to have such conviction, in my opinion, to lay points in March. Looking at my card today, I think 1, 2, 3, 4 teams I'm laying points with, and only one team I'm laying more than a full possession with.
All right.
And
fair enough.
And I got 15 bets.
I respect it, man.
8.
Yeah, that's a hefty card for my 4 bets. 3-1, but still 4 bets over the last couple of days. Justin, though, so far you are on Louisville and Marquette, second of the 2 Big East tournament matchups on Friday. In the latter semifinal game, UConn, 3.5, 4-point favorite against Creighton, the Blue Jays coming off double overtime against the aforementioned DePaul Blue Demons. Again, sad night for me with Chris Holtman. But
I thought that was I think it should be a happy night.
No, it is.
Was awesome.
For the program, recruiting-wise, it's going to pay big dividends. I don't think that was a fluke either. Holtman is a really good coach, and he's assembled a really good staff too. Brian Mullins and some other assistants.
All year. It's been great. They've been absolutely defying expectations, not like above the sea level that's going to get them hyper noticed, but here they did. They broke the plane last night. It's exciting. And even the night before, right? Back-to-back nights. They beat Georgetown 3 times in a season. Come on.
Yeah.
Awesome season in the Big East. And I think people saying the Big East are weak are just maybe discrediting that maybe Seton and DePaul are actually better than they thought, and the whole thing's actually better than they think. You can't really tell. Everything's in a bubble. It's all relative, and I'm a Big East supporter, so.
We all know that. We know you're a Big East supporter. I will say, I'll give you the DePaul thing outperforming expectations down the stretch. I don't know if I can get there with Seton Hall, but still, that's
Fair. I mean, some good defense, good coaching, but they've had injury. Like, I don't know. I think the conference is in a decent spot. I think they'll be undervalued in the tournament this year and next year. So let's go.
Well, how are you playing this UConn Creighton game? Because just off the bat, if you look at the line, KenPom makes it UConn -1, yet the market is 3 points higher. Now, obviously, intuition-wise, and the market also playing against Creighton coming off a double overtime. We saw this last night, Thursday night, where Purdue got bet up against USC. I know that's two very different teams when you handicap it, just by seeds in their respective conference tournaments, but still, Purdue almost lost the game outright to the Trojans. So is the market overreacting here just based off of the fact that Creighton could be a little bit lethargic, especially
it's the Hurley bonus too, which is a very reasonable
and home
bonus.
court.
Sure, Stores South, and they're not going to have a lick of competition in this one in terms of that. Like, it's not like the Johnny's fans are going to try to. They might root against UConn potentially. But I mean, maybe they'll stay.
I
don't
know.
Maybe I should
how
go.
Can you not
maybe
stay?
I'm gonna keep talking to myself. I shouldn't go, but but I want to. But no, I think this should be a spot where UConn gets loud. I do like that advantage that Hurley gives. I hate using my brain, but you get outworked by Holtzman with the DePaul roster. What's going to happen when you go against UConn with their roster? And honestly, I think they have the facets to take them down, right? The spacing that Creighton is allowing opponents to develop is exactly the game UConn loves to play. I mean, spacing led them to 2 championships, right? They really are going to also, I think the one issue, you're not going to see a lot of fouls from Creighton, so UConn's going to have to make their shots. We know that this is honestly the best not fouling defense maybe in the country, and then UConn fouls a lot. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the game is called for sure. But I do think stylistically, honestly, I think I lean towards an over. Both offenses very potent. Both offenses able
even
to make
off
those
double
shots.
Overtime.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think all that gets priced in pretty well. I don't think, I trust the market a lot, actually, at this point in the year. And I think we should. We're seeing how sticky it is. Not a lot of motion, not a lot of movement. Even the biggest players in the game are moving extra games by 1.5 points, which is nothing, by the way. You could still definitely shift some totals if you have some sway, but spreads are pretty locked. And you know me, I don't really bet totals because they're silly.
I'm with you.
Yeah, come on. How many points are they going to score? Yeah, that's really indicative. I care about telling the strength between teams. Look, I'm just poking fun at at totals bettors. I love them. I do it sometimes myself, but as I said, this could be an over. But yeah, I think UConn. The rest is something. The coaching is something, but at the end of the day, for me, it's just the motion offense for the Huskies and the spacing that Creighton's going to allow. They're going to be so methodical. The rebounding on defense has been so good for UConn all year. And on top of it, they don't let their opponents take threes. So it's going to really need to be like a Kalkbrenner show, and I don't really see that from them. If Creighton's going to have to hit mid-range shots, that's how you beat Dan Hurley. He knows how to play the game. I mean, he knows
They can.
That's why they can, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And then you have to do it at a better pace than UConn's going to do everything that they're going to do. Solo ball been playing great. I like a lot of the way that UConn looks. They've been a little bit slept on. Expected to beat St. John's at MSG this year by shot quality, a 9-point expected win, and then expected to win against St. John's at home. So again, give me UConn, lay the 4. Would love if I could have gotten 3, but I mean, I would maybe even consider going a little further and that getting a better price and going to 4, 5.5, 6. Expect it to be pretty serious if they get it done. They don't really hold back when they. when they meet up against these teams, like, especially in the tournament, it's either going to be like a blowout or they're going to lose. I could see it being 14 points. So, yeah, I like the alternate on Creighton.
Thing for UConn,
against Creighton on UConn. Thank you.
Right? No, yeah, you're laying the 4, maybe even
laying whatever I can.
Alt.
Honestly, is how I feel. And for the price, not assuming like, oh, no matter what, give me whatever price. Laying what I can for the price right now because the price is wrong.
The one thing for UConn, and this goes in your favor for sure, not just Liam McNeely, which is the storyline. Huskies are a much more dangerous team with a healthy McNeely, but Alex Karaban, man, underperforming big time earlier in conference play and throughout the entire season, frankly, but he has been red hot from behind the arc. 4-6 last night in the quarterfinal matchup against Villanova, which UConn didn't cover, was down at half, down 3 at half, won the game by 17 points, and Karaban went 4 of 6 from 3, 9 boards, 6 assists. He's playing at such a high level, much more than he was earlier in conference play. So the fact that, again, it's not just McNeely being healthy at this point and fully in the thick of the offense. And keep in mind, UConn won at Creighton in Omaha. I think that was on Dollar Beer Night when McNeely first came back from his injury, or that was his second game after coming back against St. John's. So the fact that you have Karaban playing at such an efficient level is huge for your bet and for UConn long term. You mentioned you being high on the Huskies. So Big Ten tournament quarterfinals, second to last game that we're going to handicap here. Purdue against Michigan, the third-seeded Wolverines against the sixth-seeded Purdue Boilermakers. Yet Purdue is a 2.5 3-point favorite in Indianapolis, the winner taking on the victor of Maryland, Illinois. Michigan, 14-6 straight up in Big Ten play with a negative point differential, nearly 78 plus to be exact. Percent of their conference wins came by 2 possessions or fewer. Yet Purdue advanced past USC in the second round. I touched on that game or alluded to it briefly a couple minutes ago. Failed to cover as 10.5-point favorites with USC coming off of the double overtime win against Rutgers on Wednesday night. And Purdue benefited from a ton, and I mean a ton, of soft whistles in the second half. You go back to the regular season meetings between these two teams. Purdue blitzed Michigan in a big home spot at Mackey in late January. Michigan overcame a second half deficit against Purdue in their second matchup. Didn't cover in the rematch, though. Vlad Golden and this Wolverines front court, Danny Wolf included, shot over 66% at the rim and in the paint combined in the second matchup. And from January 1st onward, Purdue had the third worst 2-point defense nationally. That is not a fluke. Purdue's interior defense has really struggled of late. So even though the analytics, or at least intuition-wise, you would say, well, maybe Michigan shouldn't be favored. The market is dead on here. As you said, it's hard not to trust the market at this point of the season. But Purdue's interior defense can be exploited in a big way by Vlad Golden if he gets going early. Conversely, Michigan 336th in turnover percentage this season, and Purdue got the best of them in that department in the first matchup. So how do you handicap this one, Justin? Again, as you could hear, I go back and forth here. If Golden gets going early, Michigan could very well win this game outright as a short home, or not home dog, but as a short underdog. But if the turnovers pile up, how do you trust Michigan?
You don't. Shot quality loves Purdue. We've talked about this before. They are a top 5 team in their shot quality profile this season. Currently, absolutely going to blitz you on offense for how we see it. Top 5 in terms of expected efficiency, both from 3 and at the rim. Develop spacing, pass well, which go hand in hand, of course, but also efficient in transition. So, the worry is, of course, they cannot really defend the rim very well, but the hope is that they don't let you get there. They only see 34% of opposing shots. The rim ranks 307th in the country. That was at 33%, rated 14th in the conference. And you want that number to be high. You want to see as little as possible because they don't defend it well. It's the big blemish on their card, right? Their shot type analysis is all green, offensive and defensive, but the issues they have are defending transition, defending cuts, defending the rim, all kind of related, right? Because guess what? In transition, you get to the rim, cutting, you get to the rim, they can't defend the rim. So keep Michigan away from the rim. Oh, easy. But except, wait, they have 7-foot guys who can pass, move the ball. Maybe Danny Wolf can't really pass. He can both pass and he cannot pass. It's a very high risk, high reward type of venture for Michigan. If he has a good game, if he doesn't turn the ball over, it's going to be cake, right? That's just the way they work. They have a very efficient offense. They can absolutely take you down in the pick and roll ball screen. They run 14% of their shots through it. They catch and shoot well. They finish at the rim efficiently. The only issue is honestly that they oftentimes end up, maybe settling for not open threes. That's like the only thing is they'll take a contested three maybe too often. But both these teams very efficient. Could see that, total at 147 going over pretty easily if these teams are just running offense. But they are good defensively too. It's going to be tough. The pace clash is interesting, right? So we'll see who kind of gets their way. I tend to think Michigan's more likely to get slowed down than Purdue is to get sped up. And so in that sense, I think that leans more towards Purdue. You want the team that inflicts their will on the pace. So I'll lay the points with Purdue here.
Yeah, it's a really tough handicap because if Purdue is able to exploit Michigan's drop coverage, as good as Golden is inside, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, we saw it in the first matchup. They were on fire from three. And you've touched on it, why shot quality is high on Purdue overall this season. They underperformed a little bit in conference play, at least first half to the middle tier of the Big Ten schedule for the Boilermakers. And then they end the season number 1 in three-point efficiency in league play.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough one. This is one of the games I'm most excited to watch, is what I'll say. I'll leave it at that.
Let's wrap it up here. New Mexico, Boise State in the Mountain West tournament semifinals. The winner gets Colorado State and Utah State in the Mountain West championship game of the tournament on Saturday afternoon. I have yet to have a bet here on the show, Justin. I will be on our Boise State Broncos shot qualities. Boise State Broncos to be exact. How about this? Shot quality has loved Boise State for a great reason. They shoot a lot of threes, yet they've been inefficient from beyond the arc. Boise State did not give in against San Diego State. I watched that game from the opening tip onward. The Aztecs did not allow Dagenhart and Stanley and the Boise State Broncos front court to get into the paint. Boise State shot a program record 43-point attempts against San Diego State. Didn't make 35% of them, but won the game outright. This team is, we kind of wanted, or at least I wanted to play Boise State to win the conference tournament. You kind of talked me out of it, Justin. So I'm not only betting Boise State in this game, and I'll get to my handicap after you go, but I'm also going to play some Boise State plus 300. I'm going to shop around for a better price, but I like the Broncos to win this conference tournament at this point.
I get it. Sorry for talking you off of it. I like Boise a lot. I mean, I have features for them to make the Final Four. I have, they've been so disappointing, but they looked great. They did everything that they were supposed to do. That was exactly what we've been waiting for weeks from this team. And again, they have definitely come around. They were so low in the start. That Colorado State loss wasn't pretty, but and they lost to San Diego State by 20 on the road wasn't pretty. But guess what? They were expected to win that game by 6 per shot quality. And what did they go do? They won the next one by 10, expected to win by 16. So yeah, San Diego State can outperform, but even when you outperform, sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes the data pulls through, the good defeats the evil, and Boise State's number 1 rate in defensive rebounding per shot quality gets it home, slow tempo, efficient transition, attack the rim well, get to the free throw line, defend the 3-point well, and can shoot it. We're happy to pull the trigger. And strategically smart. I mean, this is a tough spot. This is honestly one of the games of the day because it's both bubble watch for on
it's
both
huge
sides.
For the bubble.
Both sides. It's the only 2-sided bubble game. So it's if UNM doesn't win this, it could be a bid steal, right? And then if Boise loses this, their bubble could pop. So you have both sides. Either result could lead to someone else getting a bid. Kind of cool.
Yeah, Boise State absolutely needs this game, even with 5 wins over tournament or projected tournament teams, including the aforementioned Clemson Tigers. This is massive for the Broncos.
Massive.
So I mentioned this or hinted at it with San Diego State, or you did. The Aztecs, injury-wise, when they blew out Boise State at home, swept the regular season series before losing in the Mountain West quarterfinal matchup yesterday, a game we both cashed on. Guath, the conference's freshman player of the year and defensive player of the year, didn't play, so worth noting there. When Boise State beat New Mexico at home this season, Mustafa Amzil, one of New Mexico's front court pieces and their third leading scorer, didn't play. So maybe you could argue Boise State got a little bit fortunate, but I have Boise State favored. I'm with shot quality here. Slight favorites. So even with this spread bouncing around, a little bit of market movement, was high as New Mexico minus 2.5, now back to 1.5 pretty much across the board. New Mexico 17th in adjusted defensive efficiency, but they've exceeded their shot quality record by 5 wins. Boise State has underperformed its shot quality record by 2 victories. So you could argue, and per my numbers, Boise State is a little bit undervalued. And the Broncos do such a good job, Justin. As good as New Mexico is on the glass, Boise State top ranked in the conference in rebounding percentage at both ends. They play at that methodical tempo. New Mexico wants to play up-tempo, so if Boise State controls the rebounding department, that should very well help them pull off the somewhat short upset as a short dog. And then their post-up defense, too, 69th percentile on a points per possession basis, so well above the Division I average in post-up defense. They can guard Amzil. They can guard Nelly Jr. Joseph. Donovan Dent, the player of the year in the conference, is a stud. But if you keep him out of transition, that'll hinder New Mexico's offense. As good as this Lobos team is under the sun of maybe your favorite coach of all time, Richard Pitino for the New Mexico Lobos here. I think Boise State, the high variance, you're not talking about a 2-possession dog, but I think it plays into an underdog, especially one that plays at a slow tempo in general. 31% from beyond the arc, yes, isn't great, but shot quality likes them to get positive variance eventually, especially in this spot. I'm with the shot quality and shot quality bets notion here. I will be on the Broncos, Justin, whether it's 1.5, 2.5, and I'll even play a little bit on Boise State at the best price to win this conference tournament, even though we're a game away from the championship.
Yeah, nope, with you. This is a big bet for me tonight. Love Boise, took 1.5. You nailed it. I mean, this is a tough spot, but New Mexico, we have them rated a little worse. They've been lucky all season. Boise been unlucky all season. This is where you go in and you trust the data. Look, first father-son duo to ever both win conference titles, great. I don't think they're going to be the first father-son duo to ever also win conference championships. So we'll see. One of them is good. I wouldn't be shocked. One of the 2 Patino boys loses today. But I also wouldn't be mad if I'm wrong. So it's
how about both?
It's torn up. I like it. I did my crazy lotto bubble parlay of the day. So that does have Boise in it for like a $10 thing. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. But just to see what Texas do it, North Carolina do it, UC Santa Barbara to knock off UC San Diego and Boise. Every bubble scenario going wrong. The books seem to price that at around 200 to 1.
Ooh.
I say you got to watch more college basketball, baby.
I like it for some couch change. I don't blame you there. By the way, that Boise State to win the Mountain West play is our newsletter bonus pick of the day. Be sure to subscribe and play in our free contest to win free gift cards over at play.thelines.com. That gets you automatically into our newsletter. Best bets for me in our free Discord channel over at thelines.com. Link is over at the top right-hand corner, and betting guides also on the homepage of thelines.com. Justin, any last words before we get out of here, man?
Take points. Live bet teams that go cold, and expect games to closing up at the end because nobody plays to cover in March.
It's a good point. That's a good point. I want to go back to your point Another great point that you mentioned
It's
on
what I do, Eli. I mean, damn.
TED Talks and great handicapping points. Live betting, especially in the Big Ten tournament, you want to take that Rutgers USC game. That was a great example of an opportunistic live betting scenario on either side, frankly, even though Rutgers ended up losing that game by 8. Rutgers was down big in that game, so you could have played that one on both sides with USC winning the game outright as closing as a favorite. So you could have played that pregame and gotten Rutgers as a pretty big in-game dog. I think this Big Ten tournament, as you hinted at and said earlier in the week, is a perfect opportunity for live spots.
I agree. And I'm gonna my closing word will be that I know everyone misses the pinwheel, but the number of checkers on the flag is now 18, up from the 14 pins in the pinwheel. So what were they going to do? Just add 4 more pins? No, they found a way to put all 18 teams represented in those little checkers. No one liked my tweet when I sent it out. Really underappreciated observation from me. Come on, that's kind of cool. And they play it in Indy, right? It's always in Indy. So it's the flag.
It's not. It's sometimes in Chicago.
Oh, do they do it in Chicago? Okay, well maybe the Chicago logo will be a little different, but all right. I like the flags. I gotta say, I think Indianapolis. I've never been, but it's on my list because I've heard it's one of the best sport venue towns there is. Like the ease of access, the environment, going to Lucas Oil, and I'm a Colts lifer, so it's on my list. But yeah, shout out to the Big Ten for changing their logo and not being appreciated enough. I think they did a good job. I'm the only one who thinks that, though.
That's going to be Justin's closing thought here on the show. I like it. As always, for Justin Perri, you can follow him on X at JustinPerri8. And for myself, Eli Hershkovich, thanks for watching and listening to this edition, the final one of Champ Week. We'll be back Monday morning with our selection, Sunday picks, individual game bets, and futures. Thanks for watching and listening to this edition of Beat the Closing Number presented by TheLines.com. So long, everybody, and good luck with your Friday night bets.